Hola, amigo.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Catch you off guard?
Yeah. I thought I was in America.
No hablo inglés, señor.
Me permite ir al baño, por favor. That's all I learned.
It's right around the corner.
Can I go to the bathroom, please? That's how you got out of Spanish class.
Well, here is what I learned. Te invitamos al teatro 5 minutos de plaza.
Abre mis ojos, oh Cristo.
Yeah, see? You know a little more than you
Open
thought.
the eyes of my heart. I don't even know if that was right. I remember
Me
singing
neither.
it at some point.
I know enough to invite somebody.
Are you one of those guys that go to a restaurant and you speak the native tongue? Like when you order off the menu, you're like, hi-ya, hi-ya.
No.
If you're at the Chinese place.
No. I can order in Spanish. I can only order what's on the menu. That's it. I can't ask for anything else.
I always just go by the number. Number 1.
Yeah, I don't.
B42, please. It's like playing bingo.
At a Chinese restaurant. I can say Tecate and Dos Equis.
I can say McDonald's and double cheese.
Yeah, that's not Espanol, though.
But they know what it means. It's universal.
Double cheeseburger's not.
McDonald's is everywhere.
It is.
And golly, we're going to pay those people $15 an hour to not get my order right.
Okay, so McDonald's story. You brought it up. I don't ever go to McDonald's. Ever. I probably haven't been there in like a year. I went there today to take Isabel there after, on the way to school because we had a dentist appointment this morning, so we missed school.
So today was Daddy Day. Daddy morning.
Sort of. Daddy morning. I had laid in the dental chair longer than she did, so really she played on my phone while I was getting my teeth worked on. Anyways, long story short, on the way to school, I had to get her lunch because by the time I got her there, they had already had lunch. And I ordered her a kid's meal. Not French fries. The apples.
Yes.
So chicken nuggets, apples. Of course, they got it wrong. I did not get my apples. I got French fries.
Ew.
I was like, what the world? There's a specific reason we order the apples, not the French fries.
And that reason is to not be judged by the parents behind you.
Exactly. I got her a Sprite instead of the milk because she spilt milk in my truck before.
Yeah.
And it has rotted. And it smelled disgusting for about a year.
Somebody pranked me one time in high school by putting milk in a not plastic cup, but a styrofoam cup, shoved it under my seat. So it sat there forever, and then when I tried to find it, I moved my seat back, which then shattered the styrofoam cup, and then my car just stunk for weeks.
I remember that.
Was that you?
That was not me, but I remember.
I don't know.
I know who it was, but
I don't even remember who it was.
It was Ryan at Pizza Hut.
Brian or Ryan?
Ryan.
Oh, Ryan.
Ryan. He's
Well,
the one who did it.
Ryan, it's coming your way. I'm gonna
Do you even know where he lives?
I will find you. I will not kill you, but put milk in your car.
So were you doing Bat Dad there, or were you doing Liam Neeson? Do you have a special set of skills and you're going to use them to get back at him?
Yes.
Gotcha. So you're Liam.
Yes, sure.
All right. Because you kind of sounded... That's how you start out, but then you finish like Bat Dad.
Ryan, please email in your address so I can find you.
So you don't have a special set of skills then. You just give it away, Dusty. Christmas is coming up. You got any plans? You going to Missouri?
I probably am going to go Christmas Eve, see my fam. But it'll have to be a quick turnaround trip, you know.
Nice.
It's always a quick turnaround trip every time I go. Just can't ever squeeze in the time.
When I used to go, it was never quick.
My gym is doing like a thing on...
Hey, instead of saying your gym, let's say the name of it. We'll give them a shout out.
Valor, Strength, and Fitness.
There we go.
In Tulsa, Oklahoma. But what's really funny about this gym, alright, so people are great. It's not one of those CrossFit gyms that you think, oh, these guys are douchey. So my friend Andrew, you might have known him by the name of Fish on a podcast that you might listen to once in a while. He invited me to go to this gym with him and check it out. Because they're running it as a nonprofit, and shoot, I'm poor.
It's a great gym.
I would love to lose some man boobs and kind of get back into a shape. I was never in shape, but some sort of shape would be
Round
nice.
is a shape, Dusty.
Well, I got that one covered. I'm wanting something new. But, so anyways, Andrew invites me. We work out for, a good month.
It was a month.
Get my wife involved, and she's loving it. It's a good, couple thing we're doing together.
Exaggerate a month and a week.
Andrew, or Fish, or whatever
me.
You. Oh, it's you. Oh,
It's
yeah.
me.
Okay. So he buys him some brand new lifting shoes.
Yeah, they're actually. Oh, they're not in here. They're outside.
He buys him some brand new lifting shoes, and then quits the gym.
Yep.
He has not worn those shoes.
No, I did. I've worn them 3 times.
I think you wore them just to show people that you had them.
No, because we actually lifted.
That's a lot of money to spend on some shoes. Like, it's a free gym.
It's not
free. $20 a month. Basically free.
Close to free, yes.
So,
It is.
Andrew, is your New Year's resolution to get
No.
back in the gym?
No.
Because we miss you.
I've thought about going back. I like my sleep.
Yeah, I mean, the 6 a.m. class is pretty terrible to wake up for, but it's better than like a 6 p.m. class, because then that's just
Well,
your
I don't know.
whole
I can
night.
do 6 p.m. better than I can do 6 a.m.
Well, do it. There's people that go there at a 6 p.m.
I know. That
Our
class
friend
is loaded.
Fletch is leading the 5 p.m. class, or 5:30.
He only does it like once a month. He teaches at CrossFit Tulsa now.
Oh. I don't talk to him. He doesn't come in at 6 o'clock.
He doesn't really go there much.
So it's just really funny that Andrew got me to finally start going to the gym and then just
I
jets.
bailed on him. Yep.
I think he was jetting because I was beating him
Yeah, you
at
did.
lifting.
You
Andrew
did-
can out cardio me, but I can
No, you could overhead more. Well, was it overhead?
lift more.
You couldn't lift more because I could deadlift way more than you. You wouldn't even try.
Well,
And I stopped like 4 bones.
I just
before that.
started trying because I was worried about tweaking my back. And,
Like I did my shoulder, which is why I left.
And let's just say I got to Sam's. So needless to say, Andrew, my Christmas wish is that you come back to the gym.
Why don't you make that your New Year's resolution to get me back instead?
To get you
Instead
back?
of your Christmas wish. Because the wish may not come true, but a resolution you can keep working at.
Resolutions never last.
Yeah, that's more like it then.
So you start coming back again and then you quit?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm much of a finisher. I can start
You're a
stuff.
good starter of projects. I'll give you that.
Right. It's just finishing it all. This week, we are talking about costume.
Church costumes.
Literal church costumes. So what you
Literally
wear to
the
church.
costumes you wear when you go to church.
Yes, not the figurative. We are going to talk about the figurative costumes also, a little bit.
Well, we have a special guest. What was his name?
Joe Moore.
Joe Moore.
All right, we'll get to that interview here in a moment. Today we have Joe Moore with us. Joe is with Real Life Podcast. Joe, welcome.
We're actually at Joe's house right now because he has a better setup.
Moochers.
Exactly. We're in Joe's bedroom, which is kind of awkward, but
Well, when you say it like that.
we're in a
If
pretty...
you didn't say it, it wouldn't have been awkward.
Hey, at
Until
least-
you said it, now we're all kind of feeling awkward.
At least you're not laying on his bed anymore.
I know, right? It was really comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing you're still single.
I've had many a friend lay on my bed and say, I don't want to get up.
Well, if you guys have heard us, we've talked about Real Life Podcast before. Sorry, the Real Life Podcast.
Yep.
And
It's like the Ohio State, the real life podcast.
The
Right.
Buccaneers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big football guy.
Yeah, I know. I've listened to your podcast.
Yeah.
I listened to Joe's podcast, and I say Joe's because nobody else decided to show up today.
right.
Yeah. I am the Lone Ranger. Oh, I should have called it the Lone Ranger podcast.
Yeah.
There we go.
That would have made way more sense and more
Yeah.
accurate.
Like, oh, occasionally I have a guest, and his name is Steven. Or occasionally a guy named Mark shows up.
Mark has always. I've never met Mark, and I hang out with you guys on a pretty not consistent basis. I hang out with Johnny a lot
Semi-regular.
more, but I mean, I tend to see you guys periodically, but I've never met Mark. Every time like I've been on your podcast, he's gone suspiciously, and we're actually supposed to have Joe and Mark. It's
Yep.
supposed to be the deal.
Yep.
You
Well,
know?
originally it was going to be Johnny, too.
Well, yeah.
Originally, it's supposed to be the real life podcast.
You're right.
Including the four of us. Well, Steven's not here. Johnny's out of the country. Mark has something to do, so it's just me now.
I mean, if you guys didn't want us to even
Oh no, I
Be
love
friends with you.
I love doing podcasting. So I'm always glad to.
Well, I mean, at least you didn't run away out of the country like Johnny.
Yeah. Johnny saw that you guys wanted him to be on your podcast, and he was like, "Oh, I'm out."
I'm gonna go out of the country. What is he on a cruise or something?
Yeah, he's on an 11-day cruise.
Marriage counseling or something.
Sounds about right. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I am just the only thing I ever known is podcasting. Never listened to music, never gone to church. All I know is podcasting. So that's me and Johnny and Mark and Steven, actually, all the guys from the podcast, we all went to the same college. So we're all kind of one of them Christian guys who always grew up in church and everything. And
so you're really conservative, and you have
yeah, no. In the Christian perspective, not conservative necessarily at all, but it is what it is, and everybody has different perspective.
Exactly.
And growing up in the Christian, culture and in the middle of the Bible Belt, I, definitely don't mind kind of turning my back on the traditional conservative views on things, which is very freeing in a way. Yeah. So, anyways, that's why I like coming on, these things and talking about stuff that we've all grown up hearing and knowing and learning and demonstrating, and now we're kind of questioning and be like, is this really what this means? Is this the way it's supposed to be? So anyways, I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Excellent. Yeah, that's exactly why Dusty and I started this, is we didn't think it was how it was supposed to be. We didn't think that's what church was supposed to be. And we just started questioning it, and we wanted better answers.
Yeah. Is there something wrong with questioning? Do you guys think when people doubt or question things, is there anything wrong with that?
Hey, Joe,
this
whose
is our
podcast?
We ask the questions here.
But I will answer that. No, I don't think there's any issue with questioning. I think we should all question. Otherwise, we're sheep being led to slaughter.
Yeah.
Dusty, did you want to answer that question?
No, I was just going to ask Joe. You are single, right?
I am single. Yep.
Ready to mingle?
Just got divorced. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm single and ready to mingle.
I've been trying to set up Joe with my sister Crystal. I did Snapchat her today and like, you like man buns, right?
Oh Lord! And then I turned around and he took a picture of my butt.
Yeah. She didn't realize what bun I was talking about.
Actually, what you didn't know is he kept that one for himself.
Yeah, that one's my background.
Forgot to warn you about him.
Yeah, he's one of those awkward guys that keeps photos of other guys' buns.
Well, and you are starting another podcast, right? Maybe something that's a little more successful.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see if it's successful or not. I'm going to put it in the Christian category on iTunes, so maybe a different little market there that may reach more people, I feel like, since there's less submissions in the Christian category than there are the secular, I hate that word, the secular, personal journal category of iTunes. But, yeah, it's I'm not going to say anything about it, except it's going to be super cool, super relatable for especially people who've grown up in church. And it's definitely not your average Christian podcast. I'll say that.
So you're basically trying to get people to listen to the Real Life podcast to figure out what happens with.
Yeah, it could be. It could be the plan. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. That was a great question, Dusty. We got a great answer.
Dusty has to pat himself on the back because we won't. Didn't you have something else you wanted to rag on them about, Dusty?
Oh, freak. Joe, we have one review on our podcast on iTunes, and it's from somebody we don't know. So this really isn't just about Joe, but I've left a review on your podcast, and you've not returned the favor. And
oh, man, I didn't even think about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you say it on your podcast every week, like, subscribe, rate, review. We can't get any of our friends to freaking subscribe, rate, and review our podcast.
Well, I will go do that tonight.
Sure.
Probably tomorrow. Maybe next week, yeah.
So, by the time this airs,
maybe
you will have it.
You might have 2 reviews on that. Yes. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. And actually, talking about reviews, we had a review on mine that I missed. so I'm gonna have to go and reconcile with whoever left it.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I expected my mom to leave a review, and no, nothing.
Well, in all fairness, Dusty, you haven't signed in with your account either and reviewed it.
So you haven't signed with yours. So
yeah, I'm not the one who's raving on about it though.
We are talking today about church costumes.
Chapter 6, church costumes.
Costumes that people wear at church.
Like a Barney costume?
Yeah,
Yes.
like superhero costumes.
Yeah.
Like we actually, our church, we have a costume party on Halloween. Everybody wears a costume. I won $100 this year.
What was your costume? A skanky Catwoman?
Almost. It was pretty close to that. My wife, well, let's just say I kind of look like a Weekend at Bernie's kind of guy. I was just supposed to be a creepy guy at the beach. I shaved down to a mustache, and I'm blonde hair, so I dyed it black. So it was just already really creepy because I get blonde hair with a black mustache. And then I had like a unbuttoned shirt, so I'm not like the most fittest guy in the world. So, I had some belly and some man boobs showing. And really short shorts, a nice little bucket hat, and some aviators on. So I looked really creepy, like cops would be called on me type of thing.
Nice.
And then my wife we're a team here, and so my wife was a coconut tree. And so I made sure to sit under her coconuts during
my
church.
Gosh. Did you come up that by yourself?
Well, that's my wife and I. Like
Yeah.
we already got like a church ugly sweater costume idea. If our church does an ugly sweater week,
Yeah.
We are next week.
You probably have seen it. And I don't know if we'll do it because it is pretty too close. But it's like you seen where it's like kind of the boob, like a girl's wearing a shirt and like one boob is like decorated like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yep.
And so then we're thinking about her doing that, like just not cutting her shirt up, showing her boob, but like have something over it for Rudolph. And then I'm gonna cut my shirt to show my man boob, which is
to actually show your skin.
Yes, show skin, and then draw like a reindeer on it.
Nice.
I don't know, like I show way too much skin at church. It's pretty crazy.
Do you ever go shirtless while you're on stage?
Like
lead worship shirtless?
The Spirit has never led me that direction. No.
Well, has he ever convicted you of it?
There's times where I'm like, man, I just need to be bare before the Lord, like Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Just
swing low, sweet chariots.
I mean, it was hard enough to come into this podcast. Obviously, I'm not wearing today what I wore at church because you actually played drums for us this week. So that was, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I got to see everyone in their bareness, if you will, backstage in the green room. So.
Yeah, and so I've obviously have gone home and changed clothes to something a little more comfortable.
I've added clothes. Well, okay, I've added.
Wait a minute.
I've added a belt.
So you were shirtless?
I was beltless at church. I was not in my Sunday best.
You're in the same clothes, right? Is that what you wore?
Yeah. I usually
Maybe
wear
I'm the
same
only
clothes.
one that just like strips down as soon as I get home.
Yeah, I just don't find the sense in dirtying up more clothes.
Who said putting on more clothes? I just stripped down.
But you weren't wearing that at church.
Oh, well, I save those. It's like, it's still the bachelor mindset where if I only you have like 12 hours to be able to wear jeans. So if I only wear it to church for 2 hours, then I don't have to wash them yet because I still got 10 more hours of wearable time on the jeans.
Yep.
Really, I just do the sniff test. If it passes, it's good.
Yeah.
What this chapter is really about is not just those type of costumes, but the practice of putting on our Sunday best in general. This practice... Did you want to say something?
You stole my book. I'm like trying to find my book, trying to find more stuff I wrote down.
We know you don't use it anyways,
That's
Dusty.
true. That's true. I'm having a hard time reading these books.
So this practice really started in 1843 by a gentleman named Horace Bushnell in Connecticut.
That's an awesome name.
Yes.
Horace Bushnell. That feels like one of those names that you'd write like on a bathroom wall, like call Horace Bushnell for a good time.
Well, George Barna, your good old pal George, he did fact check this stuff, so I assume this is correct. Horace, his view was that the sophistication and refinement were attributes of God and that all Christians should resemble them or should and emulate them. And so that's kind of where the whole practice of your Sunday best came into play.
And that's literally wearing your best clothes, like suit and tie. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So we're not talking figuratively. We're talking literally your clothes that you wear.
Correct.
Being your best clothes.
Correct. It is literal clothes. What Dusty and I thought was this was more of a figurative chapter. It's not.
Like, it's all about, like, people, like, faking who they are at church. And so that's what made me think of the real podcast guys. Was like, man, they totally have examples of faking Christianity and being a Sunday Christian and not a real life Christian.
Well, when you say costumes, it implies that, it's something that they aren't. So,
Exactly.
So when the book says church costumes, you're like, oh, well, they're coming to church appearing like they have it all together, but it's really hell, at home. So that's what I thought of.
Right,
Well,
and maybe when this book was written, because I believe it was initially written in 2002, this may have still been an issue in a lot of churches. It's not really an issue today, as you see a lot of people wearing denim or shorts and flip-flops to church these days.
The growing churches are the comfort style churches. Which, how did you grow up? Did you grow up?
It was kind of mixed. Like I grew up, and probably up to about 10th or 11th grade or so, it was pretty like professional looking. You wear your best. Like the women wear their nice dresses and heels. The men wear, if not a suit, then like a nice shirt with a tie and slacks. Mm-hmm. But as I got into late high school, it started to relax a little bit. And granted, I did stay at the same church my entire life up till just a few years ago, so I got to see the progression or the regression, if you will. Mm-hmm. So, especially people on stage, like there's no way they would have been able to wear jeans or like a t-shirt or shorts on stage,
or even the pastor.
Oh, for sure.
And nowadays,
for sure, not the pastor.
Right. Nowadays, pastors wearing jeans and t-shirts.
Nowadays, our pastor wears like a singlet and does.
Oh my goodness!
I don't know what you guys. My pastor usually wears like a fishnet, like sleeveless shirt.
One time, our pastor, he dressed up as Superman, and he had like spandex Superman. So like his whole package is basically out there for the whole church to see. And he preached a sermon wearing all that. And
See, I don't remember that one. I remember him singing.
You don't remember him coming out of a coffin saying Superman is alive?
Oh yes, because I put that coffin out there. Yes, I do remember that.
Yes. So
I remember him coming in a wrestling singlet though, and doing Destiny's Child's all the single ladies, or Beyonce, sorry, all the single ladies in the singlet.
With terrible.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
I thought I had to repent after church. Like I had to repent for going to church.
Well, what do you think a pastor from 1992 would look and see him wearing a Superman costume on stage? And how would he respond to that? He'd be like, "What?"
Well, my dad was telling me stories. You know the band Petra?
Sure.
Like when they first came out, he was telling me stories about how his church really looked down upon them going to a Petra concert.
Yep, because it was heavy metal.
Yeah.
Hard rock.
And even also just kind of the same thing, but my mom was divorced and she had 3 kids, and my dad decided to marry my mom, and the church looked down on that like crazy.
Yeah.
It was I guess it was. I didn't know this as a 9-year-old kid, but I guess it was a really big issue for my dad to be with a divorced woman. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, there are parts in the Bible where that says not to do that.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, people take that literally, but
it also says
this whole chapter is about our Sunday best, but that's not really where we're going to stick today. As you guys can already tell, this chapter is kind of, in my opinion, is kind of void.
A little outdated.
Right.
It is.
Like I said, maybe when this book was written, it was still an issue.
And it has more to deal with that guy's church that he grew up with, and he's probably, like Joe, was still a part of it till not a few years ago. And so there's a lot of churches that, they still wear their Sunday best. But here's my question. Okay, so Joe, you and I, we played at a church. You played drums. I led the guitar, played guitar. I don't do that in t-shirts and shorts. Like I don't I'm okay showing up to church service in a t-shirt and shorts, but there's something about when I am leading part of a service that for some reason it just feels different. It's a different atmosphere if I have a button-up shirt on and jeans, which is basically today's style of a suit and tie,
Yeah.
So,
like plaid shirt, slim jeans, hip shoes.
hip shoes, yes.
Hip shoes.
Rolled up jeans at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't really know, like, so the book talks about how that was bad in the time where people, it was like, what was it, Andrew, to separate middle class?
Yeah, to separate the middle class from the lower class.
So at the time, clothes got a little cheaper, and so the middle class was able to kind of buy nicer clothes, and that kind of helped separate them from the lower class people. And the churches did that as well, you know. And I remember going to churches growing up, and my family didn't have a lot of money growing up. They provided exceptionally well for what they had. And I remember I had holy jeans, you know. They're old. And there would be older people in the church in their suit and ties going, you know, this is the Lord's house where, you know, you need to be dressed up a little bit more. And like, this is the best I have, you know.
Yeah.
For my birthday, my parents got me a Tommy Hilfiger shirt, which was huge. And then I wore it to school and found out that it's a fake. You know? So, but it's just that kind of atmosphere of people setting themselves apart from the other, like setting middle class apart from the lower class at our church in that time. And so now, is that what I'm doing? I'm kind of just questioning myself because, like, is that what I'm doing when I'm leading worship and I'm dressing nicer? I dress nicer on Sunday morning when I lead worship than I do when I do anything else, really.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just think about it, like visually. If you show up to a church, like any random church, and you have everybody who wears their absolute best clothes they had, you'll have rich people, wealthy people who will show up in an $800 suit or tux, you know, and then you'll have some people who show up in a extra large T-shirt from Walmart that was on sale for $3.99. Right, and that's
a Boys to Men T-shirt.
Yeah. That's literally like their best clothes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think over the years, and that's what you would see in 1999. You know, you'd see that big dynamic. You'd see the really poor clothes, and then you'd have the really rich clothes. And then nowadays, it's very neutral. So like the shirt I'm wearing right now, it's like a button-up plaid long sleeve shirt. Mm-hmm. I bought it at Walmart for like $8.99. And those are typically my favorite kind of clothes to wear because they're like they're very soft, they're like very casual and relaxed. Where I don't ever wear any like super expensive shirts. You know what I mean? And if I wanted to, like I have 2 really good part-time jobs. If I wanted to go save up money and buy really nice clothes, I could save up money and go buy really nice clothes, but I don't, you know. So you see over the years that clothes like kind of neutralize themselves, and that the really rich people stopped wearing suits and ties, and then the really poor people were able to get, you know, maybe clothes like I said from Walmart that are at least neutral, and you can't actually see a difference. But as far as you were saying about leading worship, I think if you feel bad for wearing just a T-shirt and like basketball shorts and flip-flops or something to lead worship with a guitar and sing, then that's okay because you're actually making a presentation of yourself, right? And you're representing not only yourself, you're representing the church in a way, and you're indirectly kind of representing God. You know, you're ushering people into His presence per se, being a worship pastor. So I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling the need to dress up to lead worship.
The way I think of it, though, is some of the most powerful times that I've had a worship set or a worship service has been like at a church camp atmosphere where everybody's in their, athletic shorts and a T-shirt because it's
sweaty
so hot.
And just got off the volleyball court.
But those have been the most, and there's different reasons why they've been most powerful. Is because you've separated yourself from all the other junk that we cloud ourselves with and not focus on God. And so I was reading this verse because it talks about, what's it talk about? It just talks about the clergy attire, which I see myself as when I'm on stage.
Member of the clergy.
Well, when I'm on stage, I'm representing the clergy atmosphere, the clergy style, I guess. And so on page 154, it quotes a verse, Luke 20:46, and pretty much what it's saying is that people are wearing these special, it says, beware the people that are wearing the special garments, the special robes, walking around, getting praise and getting the best seats in the banquet. And so they're in public, they're dressing like a priest so people know who they are, and they're using that position. And it says that they will be
Right, and they wore priestly garments, and so they're wearing these priestly garments out in the public, essentially.
And it's basically saying that these people are cancer because they're using their position and they're showing off their position by the clothing that they wear of who they are, but they're actually just using that to better themselves. And the Bible says that these men will be punished most severely.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it's just there's so much responsibility. If you call yourself a clergy, I think the Bible says you're double accountable to things.
Right, you are.
And it happens all the time where people use that position of a pastor to.
Well, you still see it nowadays too. You know, it didn't just happen when the Bible was written, and it didn't just happen in 2002 when the book was written. You know, like I mean, think of someone with a doctorate. What do they like to tell people their name is?
Doctor
so and so.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. They like that.
They like the titles. And with the titles comes money.
Sorry,
right?
I have to go on a sidetrack. So we have this professor at my school, and she doesn't have her doctorate yet. She only has her master's, so she goes by Master.
Oh no!
So and so. Yeah. Talking about titles.
Pastors that they have their doctorate, and so on their church sign that says Doctor.
Yep.
Whatever, pastor, and you're just like, I don't even want to talk to you. You're
like he's obviously full of himself. Yeah.
That just kind of for us now in today's world, we kind of see those kind of people, and we're turned off by that. Like, we're not impressed by your titles. You know, we're not impressed by your education even. And we want the hardest workers.
We've talked about the costumes in a literal sense. Let's move on to what Dusty and I thought this was about, the figurative sense of the church costume.
If I'd read the chapters better beforehand, like the synopsis of it, I would maybe not have expected this to be. Because I called Joe and I said, okay, we're talking about the figurative costumes that we wear and pretend who we are in church. And then later
so that's how you baited him, and you did the
later
little bait
on,
and switch.
Later on, I was like, oh, wait, that is not what this chapter is about. I just read it. So here you go.
Right. It's actually the literal, but let's talk. Dusty and I psyched ourselves up for this figurative sense, so let's talk about that. And really, the book started us out talking about Mr. Spudnecker, or whatever his name was, and talking about how, in the mornings you're getting ready, you're yelling at the kids, you're screaming at your spouse, you're getting ready for church, trying to drive fast, you're speeding to get there.
Fighting with your wife on the way to church.
Yep. Right. You're in a fight, but then as soon as you pull in that parking lot, you
put your smiles on.
Exactly.
Smile.
You turn on that smile, you step out, and, hey, brother, how is everything going today?
Oh, man, I'm just amazing. The Lord is blessing us, and we are just having such a good week, and we don't need marriage counseling at all.
Exactly. Thank you. So that's what we want to talk about.
Yes. Well, and I think that's a far deeper issue than the physical
clothing,
the literal meaning of.
Yeah, I think most of us that people, when we encounter people that feel like that, especially people that listen to maybe this podcast, we encounter those people that literally worry about how you dress, and we're just kind of like, you idiot.
Yeah.
So I think
it's easy to dismiss,
Right. And but figuratively, I mean, I still do it from time to time.
Everybody has to do it.
Yeah.
I think everybody has to do it. Now, some people try harder not to do it. So, about a year ago, last 2 summers ago, I just kind of made a deal with myself that if somebody asks me how my week's going, if it's going really not good, then I'm going to be like, not so much. Where before I'd be like, man, everything's awesome. Things were good, and there's a difference between looking at something positively with the optimist mindset, and then you can look at it pessimistic. And there's also a realist kind of way, there are good things, that went on this week, but most of them were not that good. You know what I mean? So when they come into church, everybody thinks that they have to look all together, and they have it all figured out, and everything's just great, and flowers and bunnies and everything.
Well, I was going through a divorce one time, and somebody came into the church office. I was actually working on staff at a church, and they were like, man, how's it going today? Or how's it going this week? And I was like, in my mind, I was like, does he really want to know? Or is he just trying to make casual conversation? And so I did the whole, man, I'm doing all right, doing good. And he left, and I was just like, man, I wonder what would have happened in that conversation if I just opened up and said, here's my life is falling apart. My ministry is falling apart because my life is falling apart. You know, how different would that have been in that setting? And
or how different would it have been if he actually pressed you on the question and be like, "Are you lying to me?" Like I do that to people all the time. Like they won't have a smile on their face, but they'll say, "Oh yeah, everything's good." And I'm like, "Tell me the truth." Like I literally have told people that before. Tell me the truth. Is everything good? And then most times out of not, they'll be like, "Actually, you know, blah 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 blah." And it's just, you know, what a different culture, a church culture would be if we actually were honest with each other, you know, and came to church transparent.
If we didn't lie.
Exactly.
Well, it's easy to lie Sunday morning because you usually just gotta lie to people as you go in and find your seat, and then maybe as you go out, you shake a couple hands, lie to them, and then you're out of there.
Yep.
When I'm in a house church setting, you know, where we're just kind of having conversations and stuff, it's a little harder to just get out of because you're having that same conversation with the same people for about 2 hours at my house, you know, and so it's a little harder to lie to people for 2 hours.
Well, and you see them consistently too, so if they notice a difference, you know, it's more likely for them to actually notice than it would be for a big crowd on a Sunday morning.
So what's the craziest church costume you wore, Joe?
The figurative or literal?
The figurative.
I mean, there's
what's your deep and darkest secret is basically what I'm asking.
There's always times like, man, there's been times where it's I'm happy to say it, but it wasn't ever a costume because I was always very honest, because the people who asked me were actually, well, I think they were actually, you know, somewhat involved and intrigued of how my life was going, because we're good friends, and I can remember people ask me how I'm like doing and everything, and you know, how's work and all the small talk stuff, which I hate. But and then they'll get to like, well, like how's life, like, you know, how's life in general. It's like, well, I'm having a lot of like issues with, you know, God, and you know how we relate to God, and you know how people can actually talk to God and all this stuff, and like, is this really what the point of life is, kind of thing, and very just open and transparent about it, which is super healthy, I think, for someone who's going through like a doubting, you know, I hate to use the word, but a doubting season, you know. But anyways, I was able to not wear a costume and to strip that costume off, and I was just bare naked before the Lord and my buddy.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Just like we like it.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you would ask me that, like, 5 years ago, oh, there's no way I would have, you know, been transparent about it. I'd be like, man, everything's perfect.
It takes time in those relationships, right?
For sure. Yeah. You let your guard down a little bit, you know, build trust, and you just see that there's nothing bad that can come out of being honest.
Well, I think, like, in our house church setting, at least, like, we've been friends forever, and now we're in this time where we're talking about the deeper areas of our life now, and there's just a safety there that you don't feel like you're going to get judged or that you're going to lose friends based on the fact that you struggle with a sin. You know, I don't.
Exactly.
It's just, not that would happen on Sunday morning either, but it's just for some reason that atmosphere makes it a little more approachable, I guess.
For sure, yeah. I mean, look at what the Pharisees did when they saw someone in sin; they automatically judged them. You know, and if we're not supposed to be like that, you know, those people, the religious hierarchy or whatever they're referred to as. You know, let's not look at somebody who comes to you, and if you ask them how are they doing, and they tell you, man, I'm really struggling with porn this week, or, you know, I cheated on my wife, or the alcohol is super big problem, you know, the last few weeks. You know, like, don't judge them, you know? And that sounds so, like, stereotypical. Like, that's what a drug addict would say to somebody, like, only God can judge me. You know, like, and I don't mean it like that, but, you know, you can't look at a friend who comes to you and is transparent and taking their costume off. You know, they aren't coming to you all neat and tied together and everything. You know, they're coming to you unraveled and frayed and totally just screwed up, and they need people to look at them and not judge them, you know?
Well, I did notice in the chapter, it did talk about how people wear their literal Sunday best to put off that figurative expression. And so they're literally wearing their best clothes. So on the outside, they look like they have everything going on together. Everything's together, and they could be struggling with something, but you wouldn't be able to tell by the smile, by the way that they dress. You know, I guess we expect people just to be look homeless if they're struggling with poverty issues, you know?
So, Dusty, are you struggling with something?
Because I look homeless?
Yes.
Maybe not homeless, maybe just...
So, Joe, what has been... You're an avid listener to our podcast.
Yes.
So...
Did you just say listen to her?
I don't know. I'm just...
Dusty likes to make up his own words, Joe.
I know. I dig that.
And so, listen to her. All right.
Listen to her. So you've listened and toured our podcast.
Your podcast gallery, yes.
Gallery. And what sections, what chapters did you like the most so far?
I honestly like them all. I think it's all easy out, right?
Oh, I'm blushing.
I specifically like this guy Andrew on the show. I'm just kidding.
Wait a minute.
No, no, I really do like them all, and it's stuff that needs to be talked about. I think if you're starting to question anything about the church and what you guys are, you have a podcast dedicated to talking about issues of the church, and I think that's awesome. So anything that you choose to talk about will be a relevant thing, because if it's part of the modern Christian church, the Christian American church, then it should be talked about. I specifically really enjoyed hearing the discussion about having the one lead pastor, or the senior pastor, as they called it, up to about a year ago, since 1995.
We changed the term, so it's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's not the same thing at all. Yeah, the senior pastor, lead pastor, associate executive producer of worship. Freaking. But anyways, no, because I don't like the idea of having one pastor. Mm-hmm. I don't like that.
Well, like most churches don't have like they have a youth pastor and a worship pastor. Like, is that what you're talking about?
No,
like,
I'm talking about one single lead pastor, one pastor over all the other pastors.
Not only that, but also one pastor that preaches consistently. Right. The guy who gets up there at least, if there's 52 weeks in the year, he gets up there at least 48 of them.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, and the other two, he's on vacation or something, and so he has the not so skilled youth pastor come preach for him. You know,
the B team.
Yeah, the B worship team, the B pastor, you know, and the C ushers. So, but no, I like the discussion about that because like I said, I don't like the idea of having one guy, not only one guy in charge, but one guy speaking his heart about what God's been teaching him. I really like the idea of instead having multiple people, not even on staff. I mean, all the time people coming up giving testimonies, witnesses of God's, goodness in their life. And I don't think there's anything wrong with not actually having a sermon, talking about stuff that's happened during your week. Random people come up on stage, talk about what happened during their week. How did God show up during that week? How they went and loved other people, or how someone came up and loved them from the church, and they give the person that did that a $50 Amazon gift card. You know what I mean?
It's like that's the early church was that style, that they.
There's an open participatory style.
Open participatory, and like nowadays, senior pastors, they plan out 6 months in advance what they're going to talk about. And I believe that that God's putting something on their hearts, especially when it gets closer to time, that they might do a series that's titled this, but really the message isn't really fit the series, but they made it fit the series. Yeah. But it's just that whole what did God speak to you this week, and having that time. And I want to incorporate that in our house church that we have on a weekly basis is, hey man, has anybody given you a word? Like I want to try to somehow make it more open share time. Does anybody have a testimony? What's God done in your life this week? And really have that more where people own it and not just try to get their answers from the guy on stage. Yeah,
and that's the thing too. People look to that guy for answers. And so if they say something they don't agree with, by chance, they kind of dismiss him and say, oh, well, he's just wrong about this. Or, they put so much, I guess you could say fame or, the reverence into the one guy.
Right, a celebrity status.
Celebrity status. And then, we hear people, cheating on their wives or getting, a male prostitute and doing cocaine a couple big
Ted Haggard.
Yeah, exactly. Some big evangelists. And then, your whole world is rocked. you know. And so instead, I think the open participatory thing, like what if the one pastor got up there every week and talked about his view and his experience with God and Scripture and what God has been speaking to him that week. Like, to me personally, I don't think there's any truly objective truth to the Bible. So, like, if you look at any Scripture, you're going to look at it through a perspective that you've gained and formed over your entire lifetime. Yeah. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if one guy gets up there every single time for an hour, you know, and describes what he sees in Scripture, then I think you're not getting it all. You know, you're seeing and reading and hearing the Scripture and experience from this one guy, where you could be hearing it from 10 different people every week. You know what I mean? And then you get to form more of a rounded, expansive view of God, I think. You know, it all speaks to God's glory. And if you have one person that had a miracle happen in their body, you know, they got healed or something, and you wouldn't hear that from the one pastor, you know, necessarily. And if you ask any pastor, of course, he's going to say, "Oh yeah, we have open mic nights where people share their testimonies and stuff." And you ask them, how often do you do that? Like once a year, like on a worship night. Yeah. You know,
on the night the pastor doesn't have a sermon ready.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, he was on vacation. He didn't have a sermon ready, so he's like, "Yeah, we'll do an open mic night at worship."
Our church, Andrew, our church growing up. Remember, we used to have a favorite hymn Sunday.
Yes.
Oh Lord.
Who has a favorite hymn? I mean, we used to always just pick random numbers, like try to get the guy to sing the songs that we never sing on Sunday.
Yep.
And we wouldn't even open the hymnal. We would just say page 432.
Well, we did have one worship guy that would be like, "Okay, come sing it with me." Like, he would catch on.
Yeah.
Like,
like,
crap.
He knew what you're up to.
All right, so the chapter you're referring to is last week's chapter 5, The Pastor. Its title is Obstacle to Every Member Functioning. I know we didn't really prepare you for this, but do you think the pastor is an obstacle to every member?
Obstacle to what?
Just their functioning.
Functioning as a body of Christ,
right.
Functioning in their spiritual life, of spiritual growth.
I think obviously he can be, and he cannot be. You know, right. I think it's totally up to the situation, and sometimes you need, I think, you know, a quote unquote shepherd. You need a mentor, if you will, to kind of guide you along, especially if you're a new Christian,
right? And
young in your faith, as they say. But I don't think that he can necessarily always be a hindrance, unless maybe he's keeping you, like, showing you a different way of looking at things than really God intended.
Well, if you remember, the chapter talked a lot about, like, what you're saying. When you have one person on stage, like, us as Christians, we have access to the whole point of Jesus coming to earth and dying for us is so that we don't need that mediator anymore.
Right.
To speak to God for us. We don't need that priest that can intercede for us. But we ourselves, we're now priests. The priesthood of the believer, I think, is
we can talk to Jesus ourselves.
We can talk to Jesus ourselves, our God ourselves. And so, but yet now we have this pastor figure, and we tend to not pray first. We tend to ask the pastor first, what does God want for me, you know? And I think that's where that book's really going is the pastor does all, like you said, the pastor does all the speaking. There's no time for there's nobody else in the body of Christ. Surely in the body of Christ, there's more people that are able to speak. And not just speak on the topic that the pastor tells them to speak on, but be able to share what God's doing in their life. And that's, Andrew and I kind of got in an argument last week, and I think I was a little misquoted or a little misunderstood, like that I believe the pastor is the CEO role of the pastor that we have today, because the church runs like a small business.
Yeah.
That role, we need a pastor. But if we took out the business side of it, and the pastor role would look way different than what it does today.
What if you just changed the title to financial advisor?
Right.
And like not pastor. Like pastor has to incorporate not only the spiritual leadership but the financial and the business leadership of the whole thing. You know? Like why not just call someone the financial officer, and then you have, you know, the ministry overseer, you know, something like that, you know.
Yeah, just change the name of it in general.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
pastor includes all those things. You know, he has to be the spiritual leader and he has to be the financial coordinator.
And he's the lead servant. So.
Yeah, the lead servant. Yeah.
The counselor.
So, were there any other past podcasts that really stuck out or jump out at you?
I think you said something earlier about order of worship.
Yeah, I don't dig that at all either.
Which we just played this morning at a church.
Yeah, and not gonna, I really do have kind of. It's not a problem worth doing anything about right now, especially since it's not the church I belong to, and I'm not anywhere close to being on staff at a church right now.
Yeah.
But I do have a problem. It's just, I don't know, man. When I read the Bible and I read Acts and Romans, I don't see the song, the offering, 3 more songs, announcements, sermon, see ya. Like, I don't see that in Acts.
Correct.
I think we stuck with that model because people see that it works somewhat. Like, is that why we've stuck for so many years with this 3-song offering, announcement, sermon, see ya?
I think that's why we've stuck with everything. Is it's worked and it still works. Why change it?
Well, yeah, but I mean, here's another question, even and kind of rhetorical. Like, how do we know what else works? How do we know that that's not the only thing that works? You know?
Right. How do we know when it's not working anymore?
Exactly. Like, oh, we're just having a slow season with baptisms. Like, or it could just not be working.
Or Christianity in general is failing. But our church, we've had a salvation this week.
Yeah, like one salvation. And then you're like rejoicing about it, which obviously we're not downplaying it. But it sounds horrible.
That person still matters.
Yeah, but like, we don't know, like, contemporarily, you know, if there's one thing, or not contemporarily, simultaneously, if there's another church doing the exact same thing as us, except in like, oh, we put the songs at the end. Like, is that really changing?
Or we sing songs in 2000 that were written in 2015, not 2014.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I think is with the services. It's just silly. You know, it's really based upon music and who can publicly speak the best.
It really is, yeah. And the transitions all have to be perfect, you know. And
you have to pray between them. Like prayer transitions drive me insane.
Yeah.
It's like we don't want awkwardness, and so we just say a prayer, and we're not even really praying to God. I mean, there's a point of it, you know. Like today, I said a prayer when we finished, and it was just like to let people know that we're finished is why we do that.
Yeah.
We are finished singing now.
Yeah.
Here's my prayer.
Instead of just turning around and walking off.
You can have a seat. Yeah.
Just randomly stop playing and turn around and walk off.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why we do that stuff nowadays. Because if you didn't do it, people would feel awkward. You know, and it would just cut out, and that's why we do it, because it works and it keeps the entertainment side of the church, you know, smooth.
Well, now we have buffer videos that kind of help people change the set, get the podium out for the speaker and stuff. Where before that, I don't know if you remember this, Andrew, at church or at First Baptist, that we would say a long prayer, and you kind of have to draw out that prayer as long as it took for those people to set change.
Yep, and like just make up random crap like, and God, please help the pygmies down in Ethiopia.
I end up sounding like my 7-year-old son who's praying for the stars and the moon, and just like, what?
Well, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of when our church was seated and we just started, and we would do those prayer transitions like that, and I was a stagehand. And I, at one point, purposely went slow to see how long the prayer could keep going. And it just kept going and going.
We're not fooling anybody. I mean, it's okay to have some silence.
Right. Well, we got to wrap this up.
Joe,
you like to talk.
I know, I'm sorry. I know.
And when I like to talk and you like to talk, it's not.
You get me started in church, and I'll go all day long.
Yeah.
So could we, but that's why we do chapter by chapter, section by section.
Yeah, to keep yourself accountable to time.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise, you'd cover all the chapters in one episode.
Exactly.
It'd be like a 6.5 hour episode.
Right. It would go on.
So, what topics do you have on your podcast coming up, Joe?
Man, we actually had a couple of really good interviews coming up. My friend of mine, Sarah Dinwiddie, she's a author. Actually, she has a book out, or not out in the publishing process. So we're kind of talked to her about that.
So you kind of know somebody that's somewhat famous?
Oh, yeah, and that's what we told her, too. You know, when you're famous, you got to remember the first podcast you were on. When you're invited to This American Life, you need to remember the Real Life podcast, you know. But, yeah, we have her on talking about her book and her music. She has an EP out as well, so that kind of stuff. And we had our recently 21st episode, so that's a big 21 for the Real Life
so
podcast.
Did you guys go get drunk and...
No. Well, we typically drink a little bit during the show, or at least I do. But no, it's fun because it's like every year we've done the 16th episode. We were like, we got a driver's license. 18th episode, we can buy cigarettes and see R-rated movies. 20, like we didn't do anything special for 20, and usually that's like a milestone, 20 or 25. Mm-hmm. And then 21, we decided, it's our drinking age. Woo! So, but yeah, some cool stuff coming up. So stay tuned to the Real Life podcast.
Excellent, we will. And for all of you, next week we will be going over the ministers of music. We're talking about Dusty.
That's me, kind of, sort of now.
Now we get a harp on you.
Yeah.
You get to talk about yourself, something you love to do.
Something I love to do, and something that so many people care about.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
Two bros in the Bible Belt.